All right. Welcome, everyone. This is Abby Gooch on Intuitive You on our beautiful station, Oneness Talk Radio. We are so glad you are here today. And today is a really obviously special day, like every day is, but we have a special guest and also a topic that I really am passionate about and also curious about what I can learn today from this guest. And our topic is how to heal trauma, to actually activate your intuitive gifts and really share them in the world. So today we have Megan, and I don't want to say her last name because usually I can mispronounce it, so I'll let her introduce herself in just a moment here. And she's going to be sharing with us how we can do that and how that trauma actually can be, like I said, a gift, but just ways you can heal it so it doesn't affect your life in a negative way, that it can really be used for its intention. So Megan, welcome to the show.
Hi, Abby. I'm so excited to be here today. My last name is Sillito, actually, just how it's spelled. So, and I've been doing transformation work for 25 years. And my very first modality that I was trained in is a modality called rapid eye technology. And at that time, it was super weird, but it moved trauma really fast. And today, it is the #1 referred trauma technique for PTSD. And other than medication, it's the one thing that can heal trauma in the neural pathways. So I have a lot of training in helping people through trauma. In fact, this was the modality that got me through my trauma. And so and it's amazing how many gifts there are in all of our life experiences, or what we might call trauma. It's really just sort of an activator's refiner fire, and if we can really open up to the gift, then we can really gain strength and power from our experiences. But hanging out in the victim place will kind of just keep us cycling in trauma. So there's so much to be gained by embracing the gift.
So what would you define trauma as?
That's a really great question, because it's very different for different people. And I've actually had a lot of what would be traditionally called trauma throughout my life. Like, I've had some really major traumas, but I want to talk about it in a different way for just a second, just to kind of give a scope, which is that for me, I have a lot of my gifts are around creativity and play. And I grew up on a farm, and the priority was always work and no play and all work. And if I wanted to play, then I was lazy. And so for me, given who I was, that was a trauma for me, that I've really had to reclaim play and the gift that it is for me in my life. And so it's not like I was getting beaten while I was, weeding and feeding the cows, it's like but for who I was and what my gifts were, being told that was lazy was, it stuck me with something that wasn't really who I was. And so anytime that we're in a vulnerable place, it could be I'm vulnerable because I'm 4, or I'm vulnerable because of the situation, and somebody tells you something about yourself that isn't true, that's a trauma. And it sticks. That's a trauma. And one of the biggest things I see is people come in and they kind of feel bad that they're coming in because they had a good childhood, right? Like, I don't know why I'm so messed up. I had a great childhood, and so they don't even do the work. They don't understand because they don't have the biggies, they don't have sexual abuse or verbal abuse or physical abuse. Then everything was fine. But their mom was checked out and was never present with them. Or, do you know what I mean? Like, there's things like financial abuse that goes on, like, and it's all really subtle. But like, how I look at trauma is if somebody tells you something about you that isn't true at a vulnerable time, and it sticks.
I love that definition, Megan. And I also feel, for me, it's a disconnection from love, which I think goes hand in hand with what you're saying. Because if somebody's telling you something that isn't true about you, that's a disconnection from love. And we feel that disconnect and it hurts. And it's like, whoa, get back to what's true, which I think is where intuition comes in, because our intuition can tell us the truth. And you can feel it as that simple gut knowing, like you know that you know that you know. And deep down, no matter what somebody tells you, if you really feel and trust your own intuition, you can actually redefine that experience. So that's some of the work I do in intuitive success coaching, is it's like, hey, what is the truth here? And let's reprogram what was told or done to you in the moment to reframe it with a new belief that brings you back to love. So, you know, in the moment, for those of you listening, like I really invite you to open up to the truth of your intuition, to notice or remember maybe if somebody did tell you something that was untrue. How can you tap in to your intuition right now and know the truth of you, and let that reconnect you back to love, which is who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that's tricky about that is that if they tell you something is true about you that isn't, it will have you doubting your internal compass. That's how we learn to doubt our intuition. You know, like we grow up in these family experiences and we know something's not quite right. But if we say anything about it, then we get made the bad guy or the whistleblower or whatever it is. And it's like, then we go, oh, my bad. That must have got that wrong, you know? And so within all of this is the other trauma, which is that we get taught to doubt who we are.
I love that. Sorry, my phone was just going off. I feel like I've had that experience, right? Like I was told something that I knew wasn't true. And that's actually when I developed my intuition. I got super clear and it's like, nope, let me feel this and trust what I do know. But I have had to work with self-doubt because it kind of messes with your mind, right? Because you still hear it, whatever was said or done. So you actually just have to say, okay, like let the mind become quiet, the heart can open, and then that knowingness can start to lead you. So I think it's really simple, and then it just becomes a practice. It becomes a practice of intuitively living rather than letting other people's thoughts or actions or behaviors kind of throw you off center, right? Or create that doubt.
Yeah. And that's a huge practice, because a lot of people who have very strong intuitive gifts who were abused, their sensitivity is such that they're picking up on the thoughts and feelings of people around them, and I mean dynamically, like somebody who's really psychic could be picking up on the whole city, or even beyond that. And so to be able to tell the difference between your internal voice and all of that is a practice. And you've got to be willing to nourish and nurture. Like, we have all these gifts, but it's our job to bring them out. It's like if Mozart never played the piano, you know, it's like, okay, he's got that gift inside him, but if he quit playing at 5 or something, you know, we wouldn't have what we have on the planet as far as music goes. And so whatever that gift is, if it's not curated, if it's not nourished, nurtured forward, it can become a little bit of an Achilles heel, right? Because it's one of the things that I do in my work is I work with what I would call highly creative sensitives. And their path to creation, and you probably work with a lot of this too, their path to actualizing things is very different than, say, a Steve Jobs, who actually didn't really care or feel other people's energy. Like, he was notoriously bad in relationships, right? He didn't have that sensitivity. He just moved forward with his vision. But when you're sensitive and you can feel somebody's judgment before you even put out your post or something, right? This is the level of sensitivity I'm talking about. If you don't have a sense of your own voice and your own intuitive self, you will block yourself from achieving the things you could achieve. That's an example of your intuition working against you if you haven't done the work to really reclaim it from whatever traumatic experience it was birthed from.
That's so true. I love that. I'm just feeling it. Like my gut's like, yeah, that's right. Like right on. That feels true. Like it feels really good. So I am one of those people that can like pick up the whole world sensitive energy. So what I think would be cool is if you could give a practice of discerning, okay, here's my intuition and here's what I'm feeling. Do you have any practice that you can share where people can really discern the difference? And I like what you said, reclaim your own intuitive compass, your own intuition.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say something really bold here. And that is that for a sensitive, about 98% of your thoughts and feelings aren't yours. And so it's kind of big, right? Because it's like you're used to being in that soup of energy, right? And we'll get there, but it's an amazing gift when it's turned into the full gift that it is, as you know. But one of the things you want to do, because if you're being you, if you're in this space of who you are, you will have a sense of lightness, expansiveness, upward light. So anytime you feel heavy, anytime you feel bleh, right? You want to ask, is this mine? And when you ask that question, the beauty of that question is that if it's not yours, your energy will lighten instantly, because there's the recognition that, oh, this actually isn't mine. And there's all of a sudden you can start to feel the sense and space of you. Just that question, is it mine? And then if it lightens, you want to say, oh, yeah, I'm going to give this back to wherever it comes from. It's not mine. My way to say it is return to source with full consciousness attached. Because a lot of this stuff, and this is kind of tricky in that, like, a lot of people will take on their family stuff, or they take on the stuff of an ailing parent or spouse or whatever, and like, I don't want to give it back to them. But the thing about it is this didn't start with us. Like when you say return it to source, it's probably going back about 10 generations, because that's how long it's been recycling through the collective, right? And so this tool, I have to credit a body of work that I train in called Access Consciousness. I've kind of developed the tool in the way that I have it. It comes from that, which is just, and that was such a great awareness for somebody who's as energetically sensitive as I was, because I was doing this sort of traditional coach model where it's like, if I feel it, it's mine. And it's like, and I couldn't heal it and I couldn't change it because it wasn't freaking mine. I beat myself up because it's like, why am I still trotting through depression? Well, as it turned out, the depression wasn't mine. It's an energy, a frequency, an entrainment that I took on from my family when I was really young. So you can't heal something, you can't transform something that's not yours. So that, knowing that, oh, hey, is this my, no, it isn't, return it. All of a sudden you've got this space and you start to sense and feel the difference between what's yours and what isn't. And it's very simple, but it's very effective for an energy sensitive. As soon as you say, is this mine? If it's not, it will lighten. If it doesn't lighten, it's probably yours and you got some work to do, but
I mean, I'm smiling because this has repeated. We had another guest that this came through with. I've taught the same thing about it being light. So if the energy is light, that's your energy. That's your intuition. If it's heavy, it's somebody else's. And I actually do say return to sender as part of my work. So you're saying return to source. But so obviously it works. My point is, like, the same stuff keeps coming up because it works.
Right.
And what I love about what you said is you can't transform it for somebody else. It's actually impossible. Only they can do it, or only we can do it for ourselves. So that very freeing, because I was one of those people like, wait, let me do it for you. Like I could, and it's like, I actually cannot. That's for you to do because you're the one that has to do it. So my heart would, just get so big as I'd want to, but that's a disservice in some ways, right? Because they have to experience. So I think that's beautiful.
There's probably a lot of empaths out there going, no, I really can heal it for you. Well, you can move energy through your body and you can transmute it through your body. But if that person doesn't get the awareness that they require to change it, they'll just recreate it over and over and over again. And that's the thing. That's why I say with full consciousness attached, is because whoever's it is needs awareness to be able to change it. They've got to know what it is for them, what it's teaching them to be able to transform it.
Mm-hmm. That's so cool. I love it. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about activating your gift. So once the trauma is healed, how does that activate your intuition to like have even more gifts and that creativity to come out?
Well, I would actually say that it got activated in the trauma. The trauma is a refiner's fire. It's an activation process. And until we got to such a time, if you notice the kids coming in now, they just come in with all that turned on, right? Because our consciousness has shifted enough that there's a space for it. But I think when a lot of us came through, there was a density that the only way to really activate was through trauma. And so a lot of spiritual people chose a lot of traumatic experiences. They came into family systems they knew would be problematic, but they knew they would get activated sooner rather than later in that process. So I actually think the activation happens in the trauma. What I think the healing does is it takes the shadow part that was the trauma off the gift. So for instance, like somebody that maybe they have a parent that's an alcoholic and they learn to be able to know where the parent was, where their energy was, if it was safe, all of that kind of stuff, right? If you don't heal that, then you're likely to probably get in a relationship with somebody like that and be tiptoeing your whole freaking life because you can feel all the energy changes and shifts and all of that. And then we go back into that trauma state. So we're using a gift, we're bastardizing the gift essentially if we don't heal the trauma. And that's probably really the core of my work, because a lot of people who are very high creators, they have some trauma that activated their creation. Like, somebody who grows up in the projects and is like, by golly, I'm not going to be poor. And so they found a way through that experience that wasn't who they were and didn't feel like them. They out-created it. But let's say they don't heal that gift of where they came from. What I have seen so much is that they will sort of blow up all their relationships so that they can make sure to keep money going so that they never are poor. And there's always this fear of loss. And so, yes, they've created on this higher level, but they're carrying this baggage along with them that makes them not be able to really enjoy what they just created. And so what I see so much is that entrepreneurs, musicians, creators of all kinds, they will recreate their trauma through their creation cycle. And so if you don't heal it, then you just kind of have to, you still have the gift, but you're kind of carrying this load with it, this baggage where it's in a way bastardized. The gift becomes bastardized because it's you're just replaying your trauma over and over and using your gift to do it. So the healing of the trauma really liberates the gift so that you and others can enjoy it, so that you can profit from it, so that it can be a blessing more than its shadow. And every gift has its shadow, like for me, like it was funny because I was such a comparer, right? Like I was like, ooh, that person is so amazing. Like, how could I ever da 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 da? And what I realized is that was actually a gift that I had bastardized, because one of my gifts is to be able to activate people's genius. Like I have a program called Live Your Magic. And in that space, people's like energetic capacities get turned on like massively. And every cell in my body sees greatness in people. Right. But I use that against myself, because what I would do is I would see their greatness and I would compare it to myself, who hadn't actually recovered my own self-esteem yet. So I was always putting myself under people, if that makes sense. So that was a way that my shadow kind of popped along. And when I actually realized that I had this gift to see greatness and to see genius and to help people pull that up and find ways to profit from their gifts, I realized that, oh, like I've been using that against myself, because I would look at people and see their greatness, and then I would immediately go, well, I suck. So that's an example of like a shadow side to a gift, right? And it's by healing our own wound, can pull that gift into its rightful place in our lives, and it can serve way more people that way.
Mm-hmm. So how do you heal that trauma, and how do you know it's healed, right?
That is the $1 million question, Abby, because there's a part, because this is not my first rodeo. I've been doing this for 25 years before there was such a thing as life coaches. Like, I built my business before there was internet, before there was email, before there was social media. Like I feel like I'm my mom. Like, I woke uphill both ways for transformation. But what that gives me is perspective, because I used to think, okay, whoop, got that done. Next, got that done. Next. And then like 5-10 years, something would like come around again. I'm like, I thought I healed you 10 years ago or whatever, Right. And so people may not like this answer, but we will go through layers. I see healing as a spiral rather than a linear process. It's not like, okay, that's done, check, that's done, check.
Right.
Like, that's not who we are. We don't operate that way, but there's this sort of spiral of transformation that I feel like we go through. And sometimes we hit our trauma at higher and higher levels, but we have layers of certain things. My personal belief is that we've had millions of lifetimes. So certain things maybe we've worked through in one moment, we can heal something that's been plaguing us for 30 years. And others, it seems like it takes 30 years to get to the other side of. And I think maybe we've just had it longer. I don't know. I have no idea why some things just clear right away, and other things we tend to work them at different levels. So for instance, like I grew up in a lot, I was raised by my grandparents who were raised in the Depression. And so I grew up in a lot of sort of lack consciousness, I would say. And when I very first started trying to build a business, I couldn't eat, right? I was eating top ramen. I was running up my credit cards, but then about 5-6 years later, I was so busy, I had a lack of time. Mm-hmm. So I was still playing out lack, but I was playing it out at a higher degree. I much rather work with lack of time than I have to eat top ramen every day. It's just an easier thing to deal with, And so that's kind of how I see the process. Like, there's as many ways to heal trauma as there are people on this planet, because our path is unique and it's different. It all starts with, I'm willing. I'm willing, and I choose to change this. That's where it all starts, and how long that takes is really up to you. And also, I think, up to the universe in a certain way, because some of the stuff we work through, I think, is like really our teacher. Like, I worked with a man who had AIDS, and we got him to a place where he was only HIV positive. Like, we shifted his numbers quite a bit. But one of the things that we realized in that process is that AIDS was something that he chose to walk with, and it was his teacher in this lifetime. And so it wasn't about getting rid of it per se, but it was about walking with it in a different way. And I think some trauma is what we call trauma as teachers. And it's not just about, it's really about, what is this? The stuff that doesn't go away easy, like stuff that just changes or shifts. Cool. You like, whatever that was for you is no longer relevant. You got the ticket and the t-shirt. You're ready to move on, right? But there's certain things that I think that we are here to learn through and learn with. And it's important to have a lot of compassion for ourselves, because I think for myself, I was really hard on myself. Here I was, this trauma like expert and and yet here was these pieces of my trauma still coming through the tube, But I would say that when I see it now, I can see it for what it is and go, oh, I'm doing that. Okay, cool. Here, what tools do I have? Instead of this again. Why is this still here? That doesn't help. That actually keeps you stuck in the trauma.
I love that. So asking the question, have the willingness to shift it. What tools, what resources, what people, do I have help me through that to actually, live out my genius, right? Like that's a great question to ask yourself.
Yeah. And also something that's really, really important to understand is that pretty much everything you're calling wrong about you is actually a strength.
That's cool. Can you elaborate on that? It's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of back to the activation occurring sometimes in a traumatic way or a negative way. The result of that is we go, oh, I'm broken, right? Or something must be wrong with me because these people are mad at me. These people are mad at me for seeing the truth of a situation. These people are mad at me for, right? And so what happens so much is that because the gift is activated in a traumatic experience, i.e. somebody telling you something that's not true about you, you tend to then see it as a problem, as a wrongness, rather than a strongness. And so one of my favorite tools is when I go into that space of like, oh, I can't believe like, okay, what's actually right about me here that I'm not getting, and what's right about this I'm not getting. And that is so beautiful because you start to actually shift the way you're looking at a thing, and you start looking for what's right rather than what's wrong. And it's really beautiful what will evolve from that. That's actually one of my favorite tools around trauma specifically is if we go back to what I said at the beginning about it, it's based in someone telling you something about yourself that isn't true, right? Or treating you in a particular way that gives you the message of somebody of like, oh, I must be this if they're treating me like that. So it's not always explicit, it's sometimes implicit. But what that creates is a sense of wrongness. But again, there was something beautiful activated there. And when you say, oh, what's right about this? What's right about me? What's the strongness here? What's the gift here? Like that, any of those questions, right? I wonder what the gift is in this. I wonder what's right about this in me. And it is amazing what you will find, right? Because for me, one of the things that I made so wrong was how empathic I was, right? And then when I realized that it was a gift, I could looking at it, sensing it, feeling it as a diagnostic rather than as something that I had to take on. It helped me to diagnose where somebody was at and what was happening. And it helped me to like, I'm so fast at being able to identify the cause or core of something because of that gift. Right. But if I take it on, if I'm taking that energy into my body, then I actually, I can't diagnose them. I can't see where they're at because I'm too busy running it, So that's something that, throughout my life, I was called too sensitive. In relationship, I'm called too sensitive. Like, oh, why are you so sensitive? Why do you get mad about that? That's just a little thing. Right. And so that's a place where I made myself wrong for freaking ever, but it was actually a gift. That my sensitivity, my ability to sense a situation or an entire room. Like I can facilitate a whole training with no agenda because I can feel and energetically tune into what people are desiring in the room and in the space. That sensitivity is a huge gift, but for a long time, I called it wrong, and I put up a lot of shields and a lot of barriers, and I tried to make myself tough, you know, and it's like, because I didn't want to be sensitive. I didn't want to be the sensitive girl, you know.
You know, somebody said something to me yesterday, softening is your strength. Like if you soften into your sensitivity, that's your strength.
You know? Vulnerability is a superpower, because in that vulnerability to me is having my barriers down, not just with other, but with myself. That's the softening you're talking about. I would call that, like, that's would be my language for what you said. But it's like being willing to be soft with yourself allows you to really see and nurture the gift that you are. And it's a superpower, because if you have to understand that if you're in protection mode, you're actually seeing yourself as a victim. Well, if you are needing to protect yourself, you're seeing yourself as smaller than and less than the person or circumstance around you, right? So when you bring your barriers down, when you're vulnerable and soft with you, there's a way that you're saying, this is who I am. And I can stand with anyone and be this, be me, be the soft, be the sensitive, be whatever, right? In the space of wherever that I might be, and understand that nobody is greater than you in your universe. Nobody has more power than you in your life. And so that softening is actually an affirmation of power. If you need protection, you're seeing yourself as less than a situation or less than a person.
That's really beautiful. I mean, my mind's like, well, what if somebody is like physically attacking you, right? Then it's like, I mean, you do need protection from that. So sometimes I think your intuition can be activated to protect you from something like that.
Sure. And have you ever heard the story of Byron Katie when she was held at gunpoint?
You know, vaguely. I know who she is, but I've heard, I don't know the whole story. I've heard about it, but I don't actually know it. Yeah.
Well, it activated her sort of super conscious self. She had no fear, no protection, was completely, fully present in space, and the guy couldn't do it. He literally fell apart. And that's more to the place where I'm talking to. Yes, that might mean if I'm being empowered and I'm like, hey, this isn't okay. And part of my being vulnerable might be making a demand, like, no. Like for me, like being a recovering pleaser, it's really vulnerable for me to say no to people. So for me, that is a softening, but that may be me saying no to something that doesn't work, something where I'm being, there's a violation happening or something like that. So soft doesn't mean like, okay, I'm just going to take it. It may mean no, but when you're vulnerable with you will have a sense of what energy is required, because sometimes the energy that's required is no. And sometimes the energy required is complete and utter space. But when you're not seeing yourself as less than, you have more resources, you have more access to what needs to happen in that moment, if that makes sense.
Totally.
You know, so yes, sometimes that protection is activation, but it's not coming from a less than place. When you're on the other side of trauma, you need less barriers. You feel more empowered, and you know better how to handle those kinds of situations.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking for myself, like it's a place of stillness and calmness. It's knowingness, and then you make your decision that. So it's like,
Right.
right? Like you can have the immediate like reaction, like, whoa, that didn't feel right. And then you go to your center, and then from your center and this calmness, it's kind of like a still lake. It's like, no, that's not okay, right? So you can say no in that.
Right.
But it's almost like coming from that place of calm. Yeah, I agree with you. It's equal, and then you can feel empowered. Totally.
And if it's just coming from reaction, and if you're holding the victim card, you will keep repeating that. Even if you leave, even if you're like, I mean, I know people and worked with people, they go from one abusive situation to another because they didn't hit that place of knowing. They didn't go, what in my life keeps bringing me to these situations that I haven't healed yet? Is that just reacting and throwing the barriers up and saying, screw you, I'm leaving. That's not enough. You'll keep repeating that unless you've hit that knowing place of like, oh, this is why I'm here. This is what my work is. This is what I need to. This is the choice. These are the new choices that I can make that will change this.
Yeah. And again, just coming from that place of knowing. So to me, just kind of simple. It's like coming back to your intuition. So we're like on topic, right? Like you heal the trauma by activating your intuition, taking action on it, and then using, that as a gift. Okay, I took action on this. This happened, and now I'm moving forward into greater manifestation of what I want. And so I think that's the other point, is getting very intentional about what is it you want to create from your heart, from your knowing.
Yes.
That energy forward, right? Into that.
Yeah, because that's what actually moved me into coaching, Abby, is that with Rapid Eye, I was able to help people shift out of trauma very quickly and out of the trauma drama. And what I noticed is that once we did that work, there were some people that just flew. Like, even like I would be jealous sometimes. I'm like, how did you get from here to, wow, that's amazing, right? And then other people seemed like they went and created more shit, and I couldn't figure it out until I realized that the people who took off already knew what they wanted to do. They knew what their gifts were, had some sense of it. They had a sense of where they wanted to go. So when we freed up the trauma, that energy could move in a creative direction. The people who didn't know what their gifts were or what their direction was, they were very uncomfortable with all that new energy, and they had nowhere to put it. And all they knew what to do was create trauma. So they go create more. And that's what got me into coaching. That's what had me seek out. I apprenticed with Gay and Katie Hendricks for about 8 years or so. And I learned the genius work from Gay Hendricks. He has an amazing book called The Big Leap, I think it is. And I actually, through my training with them, developed my own material around genius and started my book that you can get for free on my website is called The Power of Living Genius. But then I started to activate my own gifts of helping people activate their gifts and see what their path might be and see how a direction they might go once we freed that energy up. And I say to people all the time, the easy part is releasing the trauma. The hard part is actually looking to, what am I going to do with this amazing, huge, big life? Like, claiming our gifts is scary in a world that says, be mediocre. Like, don't stand out too much. Do you know what I mean? Like, to say, hey, I have a gift. For me to say I can activate people's genius, I couldn't used to say that. That's something that it took me a long time to be able to claim for myself and to be able to own for myself. And some of the gifts that people have and that have been activated in trauma are so dynamic. They would almost be considered magic in this reality. And so it's kind of scary to say, yeah, I can put my hands on somebody and it heals I can take a tumor out with my hands, things like that. So when the gifts or when that creative life force is really different than what we see as gifts out here, the real work, there's a lot of work to claiming that. Like in my work as a coach, like the healing of the trauma is we can do that really fast. It's really about claiming who you are and that process of stepping into being a creator. And giving your gifts to the world, which is one of the biggest human needs, is to be able to make a difference. And if you're not making a difference, you will go create trauma drama, because you've got to do something with that creative energy.
That's so beautiful. And one of the things that I love that you said is, when you owned what you do, that's a gift to everybody else. That is how you make a difference. So when you own your gifts and shine, you help the people around you. Whereas if you shrink and you don't, you never get to share that. So it's such a service to yourself and to all of us to activate your gifts and to follow your intuition, be who you are, because that's your purpose. That's why you're here, So I just love that. I absolutely love that. So for those of you who are new to the show, you can go to lifeforceconnection.com and download the activation to your full intuition and how you can activate each of these centers to open up. And then I also want to recommend that you go to Megan's site and I just want to say activate your genius, because I know whatever you're doing is going to help them activate that. So if you want to share what your site is where they can also activate that, I recommend that everybody goes to both of those places. So go ahead, Megs.
Yeah. MeganSillito.com, MEGANS as in Sam, ILLITO.com, and just put your name in the little white box, and you will get a PDF of my Power of Living Genius book and the companion journal that goes with it. And yes, it's like I wrote the book in what I would call tidbits. So there's like an idea, but then I'm giving you an activity to activate something right there, right now. And so I'm very much, so many books out there give you a lot of really good ideas. It's like, oh yeah, love yourself. Well, how the freak do you do that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I understand the idea, but how the freak do you do it? And so my big thing is like making it practical, making it real, like not just a nice idea. It's not just a nice idea to heal your trauma or activate your gifts. Like, how do you really do that? And that's what I love to do. And that's what's in that book. So, and then there's, I'm actually reading a chapter that I was in a best-selling book on Amazon called The Energy of Magic. And I actually talk about magic and some of these more esoteric kinds of gifts that we have that we can look at and claim and own. But we're really so much more magic. Like this sort of reality, punching time clocks and such is really kind of a very dumbed down version of the capacities that we really have. Like people are magic. Like that's what and one of my greatest joys is teaching my event, Live Your Magic, because people just pop and they're just, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that about me. But it's one of the biggest factors, I think, in happiness. Like people are trying to be happy through meditation and stuff like that. Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. But until you really know how awesome you are, it's hard to be happy.
Yeah. Totally.
And
I guess the question keeps popping, like, what do you want to create? Like, I might be reiterating the same thing, but like, boom, like, what do I want to create? Just to kind of let yourself move into the space of that question. And then what do I want to live? It's like you create it and then you get to live it. And I think that's the point of like releasing the blocks and releasing the trauma and following your intuition so you can live your creation. It's like you paint this beautiful picture and then you find yourself living it. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm really living it, right? So it is possible. And it does start in the imagination, and your intuition connects you to what's possible. And then you can use tools like this to just open up and let go of what is stopping you from already having that now. That's what I think is so beautiful. So,
And one of the questions I would add to that, because a lot of times people, they kind of, I would say sometimes they shut down around the word create because they don't see themselves as creators. And so one of the things that I do, if that question's too big for you, I'd say every day ask, what would be fun for me? What would be fun for me to do today? And if you follow that energy, you will start to get a sense of what you might want to be creating in your life.
Very cool. I love that. Wow. Well, is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience?
Well, there's so much to share. There really is. But I think that what comes to mind that might be useful is really to, a lot of people like, well, should I clear my trauma first or should I create first? And it's like, just start. Like what I noticed is that I came to Rapid Eye with a ton of trauma, ton of baggage. I wasn't even functioning in my life. Like I couldn't do money. I was like a mess, right? And so for me, I had to clear a little bit to get to a place where I could get into creation.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I've noticed since is that because I love creation, that every time I reach for higher ground, I oftentimes run into that next thing I need to clear. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I don't worry about going and doing my work these days. I just create, and I know that if there's something that I need to look at, it'll show up on that creative path. Mm-hmm. And so I think it really, because when somebody comes to me, it's really intuitive on my part about whether to start them moving into a direction and letting us deal with what comes up, or if there's clearing that kind of needs to be done so that they can see a different palette for themselves, so they can see the options of colors they might have for themselves. And so you just start where you are. Like I'm serious. It's like if you just go, yeah, what would be fun? What can I do that would be fun today? And just do that for 30 days and notice what types of things you're doing. Notice how that feels. Notice, this is a great story. There is a girl when I was doing my genius classes, and one of the questions I would ask, and it's in this question is the book, is what did you love to do as a child? Mm. That when you did it, time disappeared, right? And because there is a version of that activity in your adult life that you may not be looking at, you may not be seeing, and it's a great place to see where your energy might be wanting to go. Mm-hmm. This girl says, she raises her hand and she goes, the only thing I love to do as a child is climb poles. What the hell am I supposed to do with that? I'm like, I don't know, go climb a pole. And at the time I was doing this weekly class, and I said, go climb a pole and report back. So she's like, okay, fine. That's not going to do anything, blah, blah. She comes back next week and she's like, that was really fun. She goes, so I signed up for pole dancing classes. And I'm like, cool. Well, within 9 months, she'd gone from student to teacher. She was competing in the Intermountain West in pole dancing competitions. She ended up moving to LA to strengthen that. She ends up trying out for Barnum and Bailey Circus, makes the Cannon Girl. So she ended up joining the circus from, I just want to climb a pole. That's it. And the problem with our logical mind is we'll stop that stuff. That's just stupid. I haven't climbed a tree for 20 years. I'm not going to climb a tree. But that would be fun, but no, I'm not going to do it. Right. But there's something in those things that feel fun to us, that have juice, that have magic. And if you go towards them without any thought of how am I going to make a living at this, right? You can't know right now. Your job is just to follow the energy.
Yeah, totally. It's funny. I woke up this morning thinking feeling God is feeling bliss and joy and happiness. So it's like when you're just feeling good, doing what makes you feel good, following your joy, following your bliss, you are in intuitive alignment with your path, right? And that is all this other disconnection from love and trauma, yes, has helped us activate our intuition, and all to be able to create more light, more love, to expand that bliss, to expand that joy, and really be who we are. So I just invite you all, to go to the websites, get the activations, get yourself in the full embodiment of who you're meant to be, which is more light, is more love, and is the expression of your gifts. So happy that you guys have been with us, and ladies to join us. And Megan, I think we're about ready to log off. So sometimes I like to ask people, is there a mantra that you'd like to just kind of say for everybody to carry with them? Instead of the trauma, let's carry the mantra of I am enough, or I am loved, something very simple that the mind can just reroute back to that truth within.
Yeah, in fact, I'm going to steal again from Access Consciousness, because it's not so much a mantra as it is just a recognition of the truth of the universe. And that is, all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. All of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. Because when you're aligned with who you are and your gifts and your capacities, you're coming from that knowing, that actually is the truth of life. The reason that life is traumatic is because we're going against that. We're going against ourselves. We're going against our knowing and our gifts. And the universe loves us enough to go, no, this is not the way. No. But when you really get that, when there's an ease, when there's a joy, that you're actually aligned with who you are, that's really truly life. So all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory.
I love that.
I find, yeah.
If you're finding yourself struggling or moving against or that, then maybe just kind of ease up, soften, like you said, open up, relax. So then, like what you're saying, can come to you, right? It comes with ease and joy and glory because it's a flow. It is your life force. That's why you can have so much energy when you're in alignment. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, totally.
Oh my goodness, this has been so much fun. I'm so glad. So we just have up on the Intuition to Income Summit, and everybody can also go to Intuition to Income training coming up, and it'd be fun to have you on that too, Meg, so we can talk about that. But it's just so much fun to just see you in action, and anybody that wants to share their results, you can email us. You can put a comment on this video and we'll be checking those comments and just here to support you, just being all of who you are. So thank you everyone for joining, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Thank you, Abby. This was so fun.
You're welcome, love. Talk to you soon.